You clicked on this video because you want to know how your favorite class in Lost Ark is ranking, didn't you? Well, then let's just get into it. Before we start with this list, there's a few things I want to say. First off, please note that the class balance in Lost Ark is actually fairly decent, up to a point that there's no locking out classes or classes being dismissed from content. On top of that, the class balance changes here and there. Some get buffed, others get nerfed. Do not choose your class depending on how it ranks in any tier list, but choose it for what you like about it. I will literally just say this again. Do not choose your class depending on how it ranks in any tier list, but choose it for what you like about it. This is really important. Anyway, we could probably reduce the whole tier list to 2 tiers, but that would be no fun. On top of that, in general, take any tier list, especially for Lost Ark, with a grain of salt. Recently in Korea, they have introduced a DPS meter for the training area, but with everything that's very subjective and not telling the whole story behind the class's DPS. Just because they might do the most damage on a still standing dummy within a minute, doesn't mean they can provide this damage in actual raid content. The tier list you are about to see is based on utility, damage, difficulty and RNG. So, let's start. Let's get it out of the way. The best, the most desired, the S tier classes in Lost Ark. First off, the Bard. No surprise here. Healing, shielding, damage buffs, debuffs, it has no end. The class is absolutely amazing to play with, and it will literally make you smooch any Bard player. If you're worried about playing a desired class in Lost Ark, this is your class, absolutely. As you probably already expected, the next class on this list is the Paladin. Pretty much the same as above, just a little bit less, I guess. Bard is a tiny tad ahead in terms of utility, but not enough that it really matters. You'll take any of the two any day of the week. And lastly, you might already guess it, is the Gun Lance. Absolute monster utility DPS. Provides shields to the party, can interrupt boss mechanics, and on top of that just brings really good damage. It's not a support, but can flex into the role of support for daily simple content. Banger class. To pretty much sum it up, to have a good experience in a party, you want to have at least one of the two supports, and on top of that maybe a Gun Lancer. It just makes the game feel different to play with those classes compared to not having any of those classes. Trust me. Alright, the S tier was pretty obvious, wasn't it? So let's head over to the A tier, which is composed of classes that bring good damage and good utility. Please note you're free to swap around the ranking in the tier. The difference is not significant enough to actually make an in-between tier ranking. I'll just do them in the order of the alphabet basically. First A tier class is also starting with A, the Artillerist. It has really good damage output if played properly. On top of that, it offers significant amount of stagger and can even choose to shield the whole party. As if that wasn't enough, it also has a debuff on the target with nearly full uptime. Berserker. Very nice damage output, easy to play, lots of stagger. Just an overall good class that even a monkey like me can play well. Chances that they are putting out good damage is very high, so on average they perform very decently. Next up is one of the latest classes, the Gunslinger. It's just extremely strong, can be played from a decent range, which allows it to simply ignore some melee mechanics, and on top of that, it pretty much has a 10% crit buff that has full uptime. Just very strong overall right now. I do expect to see some nerfs. Last class I will put into the A tier is the Sharpshooter. With its recent buffs, it absolutely smashes in terms of damage. It is really strong. A absolutely amazing class that can be pretty much played from across the other side of your screen and ignoring again a lot of melee mechanics. It also comes with a full uptime debuff for your party to do more damage. Before we jump into the B tier, I'm gonna do the honorable mentions. The reason why I'm calling them honorable mentions is because these are classes that are not confirmed to be released on the Western servers yet, so you probably care a bit less about them, but they might come at some later point, so I figured I'll just put them on here and show you where I ranked them, but I will not explain why. Simply said, Destroyer, Reaper, Scouter, and Striker, all 4 are currently really strong for their own reasons and probably will remain strong unless we see some drastic balance changes. So you can see that classes that get released later seem to be a bit stronger already. Now let's move on to the B tier. Classes that are definitely not bad, but also just not outstandingly strong. One of my favorites, the Scrapper. It's a very decent class, offers good stagger and just generally kinda exists with its damage. It has some more tankiness to it than other classes do, so it's better suited for monkey gameplay like myself. Thumbs up for that! Another one of my favorites is the Shadowhunter. Not very hard to play, offers some utility and can be a bit tankier due to gaining HP whenever she transforms into her demon form. Just middle of the pack, but nothing to go crazy about. Next up is the Soulfist. I was debating on putting it into a tier lower, but felt like that was a bit harsh. The problem with the Soulfist is that it's so hit or miss, like literally hit or miss, cause missing your ult and you will definitely only be a D tier DPS, if not F tier. If you hit all your ults and you crit them, well, you're straight up A tier. It's so hard to rank this class properly, but I hope you understand what I mean. In the end, B tier seems reasonable as it depends mostly on player and some RNG basically. A class I will probably never play myself, but is very attractive to many others, is the Summoner. She is quite easy because she can summon the pets that are doing damage for her, so she can focus on dodging and staying alive, which other classes cannot. She's also absolutely amazing in progression or so-called blight content because of the uptime of her damage. That's simply why she is definitely put into the B tier. Lastly in this tier, I'll bring you the War Dancer. Lots of buffs, overall just average of the pack with this class. Very good for sync content due to the buffs, which definitely brings her into the B tier. Again, for the honorable mentions, because it's not confirmed out on release, is the Lancemaster. Probably could have made it into A tier, but decided to go with the B tier for her. The crit buff she offers and the damage output are really good, and just generally make this a good class in Lost Ark. Lastly, the C tier. I will not make a D tier because I want to keep up this idea that class balance is actually fairly decent in Lost Ark, and no class really deserves a D tier in my opinion. Well, maybe one, but we'll talk about it. First up is the Deadeye. It's just honestly a worse version of Gunslinger, no matter how harsh that sounds. It's generally not as strong and it's also harder to play. Even the best Deadeyes will just not pump as much damage as an above average Gunslinger. So yeah, sadly Deadeye just is at the end of this list. If you enjoy its playstyle, I would suggest trying out the Gunslinger instead, just to be honest. I'm sorry, that sounds rude, but yeah. Anyway, next up is the last class available on release for an AU, which is the Deathblade. I know many of you won't like to hear this, since it's such a popular class. It's fancy looking and it probably feels nice to play, as many have told me, but it generally just doesn't have the utility nor damage that other classes bring. It's low end of the pack and it's being outshined by other classes. The buff for more positional damage also is very situational and just isn't good enough, to be honest. Last honorable mention is the Arcana. It has potential, but there's two reasons why I rank it in the C tier: RNG and skill ceiling. The RNG behind the Arcana's playstyle can make it pump extreme numbers, yeah, but you need good RNG for that. On top of that, it's a very squishy class that has a high skill ceiling, just like the Deadeye basically. That's the other reason why I put it here. And with that, we're done. Like I said, I didn't want to make a D tier because I feel like the class in Lost Ark are actually fairly balanced. I do hope for some blade buffs in the future because I know many people enjoy the class. Again, I want to emphasize how no class in Lost Ark is ever locked out of content or being considered bad. But obviously class balance isn't perfect, but it also isn't horrible. Please, in the end, play whatever you like the most, that is what matters. If you want to be a utility god, you should probably take one of the S tier classes. Otherwise, anything works, to be honest. I hope you enjoyed my tier list. If you feel like something is wrong, let me know in the comments, obviously. And I'd love it if you could leave a like or even subscribe, that would be awesome. I also stream nearly every day at twitch.tv/HiAmFox. And with that, we're at the end. Wishing you all a great rest of your day, wherever you live.